Hi, hope I'm live right now. I was rushing to make it to this live with all the work I had to do today and letting all you new people into the group, which was awesome. So I'm really happy to have all of you here and that so many of you took interest in this group because I really think that, one of the first things that you need to do when you're doing anything of value and anything difficult is to really like make the decision to do it. And this joining this group is like one small step to doing that. So I'm gonna see. I don't think there's anyone that's live on this call right now, but that's okay. I'll start in just a few seconds. I'm gonna have some water. Okay. All right. So, whatever, probably not a good time for most of you who are like busy with pickup and stuff around this time. Thankfully, I have my amazing husband taking care of that. But I do like to it's most comfortable for me to do these kind of at the end of these lives at the end of my workday, because I'm done with work and I'm still at the office and there's no like shouting children, and if I waited until they were in bed, then I would have to speak really quietly. Plus, like my energy levels just like slump after I put them down. I have a very young baby at home, so I nursed him for a long time, and then usually I'm so exhausted. It's like he drinks my energy. So shout out to all of you nursing moms, and I will get started. So basically, today I wanted to talk about something that I think a lot of us struggle with. I don't think I know anyone who doesn't battle with imposter syndrome or feeling like they're not good enough. And if you don't, then like props to you. That's amazing. But I know that personally, it's something that I've always had to deal with, and so do many other people, especially people in this category, right? So people who want to make this transition, because this problem of imposter syndrome usually hits us when we're trying to do something, that's really that we find really challenging, something that we haven't really done before, something where there's like high stakes, and it's really important to us. And anytime we're basically trying to play bigger, that that inner critic will kick in almost automatically and start sabotaging it for us and saying like, oh, who are you to try to accomplish this thing that you're trying to do? And don't you remember all those other times that you tried and you failed? And don't you remember all those times that you were really sucky at this, and this? And we find all these reasons why, all these like little proofs why we're not good enough. And it can be really hard to do. It's definitely not a pleasant feeling, but it can also be really hard to shake and deal with. And there's a real cost associated with not handling this properly. Because when we're trying to get a job, for instance, like a lot of you are, let's say, you're in the middle of the interview process. And I mentioned this a little bit in my previous broadcast. So let's say that you're in an interview and you're hitting all the right points. You're speaking the right words if you trained really well and like practiced. But if you don't believe what you're saying because your inner voice keeps telling you that you're lying, that you're not good enough, and you're trying your best to highlight all your strengths, but all you can internally focus on are your weaknesses, that's going to come through. It's going to create this misalignment between what your like lips are saying and what your internal state is. And people can pick up on that, and it seems weird. Like they might not think, oh, this person is like a dirty liar, but they will pick up that something is like off. And that can sabotage you. Sometimes it'll work anyways, right? But a lot of times, like if you don't get over it, I guess we'll get to that later. Like what's this cost here? But we know that we need to deal with it, right? We know that we need to somehow solve this problem and get over it. We're always looking for ways to deal with our inner critic, with our saboteur, right? With this feeling of imposter syndrome. And what most people tell us to do is to fake it till you make it. But we have this advice of this is how you're going to overcome not feeling like you're enough, or not feeling like what you have to offer is enough. You just get in there and pretend and fake it until you become it. And there's a huge problem with this approach, even though it's so common. And it's because it's relying on external factors to validate something that is an internal problem. So what I mean by that is that, like, the logic goes, okay, all you have to do is keep up these appearances long enough, of like a competent person who can do this job. In the case of landing that next career move, keep up these appearances until you can convince someone that you deserve it. And once you get the job, or once you get that promotion, or once you get that corner office, once you get there, since they believed you, then you're going to know, you're going to have that validation that, oh, it's really true, because I'm in this role right now, or because I got the promotion, so I must deserve it. Or, I'm sitting in this beautiful, office with a view. So that must mean that, I deserve it. And the problem is that it actually works the opposite way. So while that tactic or that strategy of fake it till you make it might work, it might actually like take you there, because, if you're like a good enough actress, then you can pretend long enough to get what you want out of, the people who are the gatekeepers of the things that you want. But it's not going to solve the problem of having imposter syndrome. It's actually going to get worse, right? Because the thing that we miss is that we actually need to understand and accept and really believe in our own greatness and our own capabilities before we see that translated into stuff in the real world, and before we can really, stand in that greatness and take advantage of it. And so, yeah, it might work, but we're never going to get rid of the imposter syndrome feeling, because you haven't dealt with the root of it, right? You're always looking for someone on the outside, or something on the outside, some circumstance or person, to validate a self-doubt that you're feeling. And you're essentially putting that power in the hands of someone or something other than yourself. And you never want to be in that position, because who knows who your boss is going to be, even if you get the job. Who knows what the job is going to throw at you? Who knows, like, if you'll get it or not. And let's say you get the job and you work for someone who somehow, like, you didn't pick up on it because maybe you really wanted the job. You didn't pick up on it, but they're a total jerk. And they, like, get a kick out of putting other people down and, like, demeaning them and stuff like that. You're going to start believing that because you never took the time to take care of your own internal bullshit. Or let's say that, you're job searching and you tell yourself this story that, okay, I just have to pretend like I deserve this job long enough to get it. And once I get it, I'll know that I deserve it. So it's a backwards logic. And I hope you guys can see that, because even though it might work, it might also not work. And when it doesn't work, how many rejections can your ego take when you haven't dealt with that? How many no's or just no replies can you handle before you decide, oh, I actually don't deserve this? Because you've literally said, once you have said to yourself that when you get the job, then you'll know that you really deserve it, then what you're implicitly saying is that if you don't get the job, if nobody gives it to you, then that means that you don't, and that you really can't, and that you shouldn't even be trying. And that is not the way to success in this game. So I hope you see where I'm going with this. Another thing that you lose out on, especially if it works for you, right? Especially if you take the fake it till you make it route and it works and you advance and you get more responsibilities and more promotions and a better title and all that, like higher pay and all that stuff, and you keep rising and rising. But it's all built on the foundation of a very fragile internal state. And it actually makes the feelings of imposter syndrome so much more severe, because it can feel like you've built this house of cards. You've built this grand version of yourself, the one that's, killing it, crushing it, having so much success, getting, as like a senior VP of this or that. You can have all that success and actually feel even worse because you feel like you've built it on play pretend. So those are like the main risks. Let me check my notes if there was something else that I wanted to cover with you guys. No, I think that's it. So here's what, now that we've covered all that, and I hope that I convinced you, that I managed to convince you why it's not a good idea to fake it till you make it. Here's what you should do instead. Every time you feel that doubt, first of all, that event, okay, of you feeling like you don't trust yourself, or feeling like you don't deserve something, or feeling overwhelmed, or like you can't really do this, or any other thing that your inner critic is telling you, that's a pattern. It's a habit that you have been living with probably since you were a kid. I don't know, like, when we stop, like when we're little kids, really little, I think we don't really have that. Like, we don't even really have a filter for the most part. We feel like we deserve the world, and the world is here for us. And if you have young children, and this, they kind of they don't really care what other people think, until a certain age hits, and like enough parents, teachers, friends, whatever, relatives, and anyone really, and brings them down and brings us down. And we start believing that we're not good enough. So what I'm trying to say is that this line of thinking has been conditioned in us for a long time. So it can be hard to do something else. And the first step in order to do that is to, number one, recognize that we're doing it. And number two, interrupt that pattern immediately. Do something else. So I want to invite you to think about where in your life, and specifically in this and in your career, and trying to, break through to the next level of your career, into high tech, where have you seen that pattern in yourself? Where have you been, kind of playing small because you're too scared? And where have you been feeling like maybe you're not good enough, or you're just, maybe you're going through the motions and you're faking it till you make it, or till you hope you make it, but you're scared shitless. So I want to know, tell me in the comments, or you can draw me a private message if you want, where you've been feeling that. And then this is going to help you actually, like, reflecting on what happened, let's say in the last week, 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever, will actually help you recognize that when it comes up again in the future. And that's why I'm asking you to do this. Okay, writing it down is going to cement it for you in your subconscious. So the next time it happens, it's not just going to pass over you without you noticing. You're going to notice it better, or you have a higher chance of noticing it, once you've taken the time to think about it enough to articulate it in words. And then I want you to do some pattern interrupt, some kind of interrupt the sequence somehow, whether it's to do like a big stretch, or to stand up, or to, I don't know, whatever it is that you want to do, like laugh to yourself, like, yes, you will discover with time that I'm insane. But yes, this is just scratching the surface. And then I want you to do the following things. So once you've recognized it and interrupted it, so you broke that pattern, you have a chance to replace it with something else. And what I want you to replace it with is shifting your focus from what you're experiencing, thinking, feeling right now to something better and more productive that will actually get you there. So number one is to shift your focus from yourself to other people. So a lot of times when we feel this imposter syndrome, it's actually, I want to invite you to consider the fact that it's actually a little bit of a selfish habit, because you're constantly thinking about what am I gonna look like when this happens? I'm gonna look like a total fool if I fail. I'm going to look like an idiot. What will other people think of me? And it's all this I, me. It's very self-focused. And what you can do instead of that, which will greatly help you overcome the imposter syndrome, is to think, well, who can I help by doing the thing that I'm a little bit scared to do? And who will suffer if I don't? And what will they miss out on? So, it takes some conditioning. But you can start thinking about, if you don't apply to this job, then someone else who is not as empathetic as you, or not as quick of a learner as you, will get the job, or anything like that. Anything that you can say about yourself, any parts of your identity that you like, that you think are, that would serve you well on the job that you're applying for. You want to really focus on those and think about what what's the company going to lose by not having you? And it's a new way of thinking about it. But it really helps with the internal state. And obviously, if you need any help with that, just you can message me or write in the comments, whatever. I personally, like, one of my superpowers is seeing the best in people and seeing like their strengths. And so I would love to help you see that in yourself. And then, so that's the first shift to make from yourself, and focusing on what's going to happen to your ego when you like make an ass out of yourself, to what's the other person or the company or whatever what do they stand to gain from you? Yes, taking action. Yes, doing the thing that you're hesitant about doing. And what will they lose if you don't? And then the other thing is to shift your focus from the meaning that you give to the imposter syndrome. So a lot of times when we feel that feeling, that like, gut wrenching, like, oh my God, I can't do this feeling, it's because we're like assigning it a meaning. We feel scared about it. And then we say, this all happens like subconsciously, but we say, to ourselves, well, if I'm so scared about doing this, it must mean that I'm not ready. If I'm so scared about doing this, if I have so much doubt about my ability to do this, then it must mean that I should just give up and turn around and go back to the life that I know and the job that I know. And even though I hate it, at least I know that I deserve it because I've had it until now. I'm kind of making fun of it, right? But I'm basically trying to show you that there's no rewards for buying into that fear. And what I want to offer you is to actually change the meaning that you give to that feeling. So the next time that you feel imposter syndrome creeping in, I want you to think about these two things. Number one is that feeling of discomfort that you're feeling when you're trying to do something like that is actually the feeling that you feel when you're stretching the limits of your comfort zone. And it actually means that you're doing something meaningful. And it definitely means that there's so much greatness waiting for you and everyone you're going to touch once you do this on the other side of that fear. So the fear doesn't mean, no, turn back, don't do this. Opposite. The fear means, okay, it's money time. This is the time to push through and get this done, because that fear means that I'm on the right track. And then the other thing that it can mean, is if you really take stock of, or like take this inventory of what you are and what you know and what you can do and stuff like that. And I know this can be hard to do it in your head, but you can make a brave attempt to do it. But try to be realistic about what are your capabilities, and totally objective. And if there's something that you're missing, so isn't that self-doubt just a really good flashlight? And it's lighting up for you the corners that need a little bit more information, the parts that need a little bit more help, right? So I'm not saying, you guys know that I'm like really big on mindset, and it's because it's like 90% of the success of getting a job or actually accomplishing anything worthwhile in the world, 90% of it is like how well you manage your own psychology and your beliefs. But that's not to say that there aren't those other 10%, right? Where let's say that you have a presentation to give at your job and you haven't prepared for it. So you would feel pretty anxious, and rightfully so, right? Like, I'm not saying that all you need to do is believe in yourself. You go out there and wing it. No, not at all. But it is giving you clues as to what needs to be done. So if you have a presentation, you should probably prepare for it. And if you're feeling anxious about it, don't push that away. Invite it over. Have a coffee with it. Figure out what that feeling is pointing out to you that's missing for you right now, and then go out and get it. Don't be like, oh, it's missing. Oh shit, I should go back to my little job that I have right now. No, just say, oh, okay, this is missing, this is missing, and this is missing. Okay, now I know what I need to go out and get and do. And then, go and get and do those things. And so, if you're feeling like you're not ready for, let's say that you've been invited to an interview and you have a feeling that they're going to discuss salary with you, and you don't feel like you're ready for negotiating. So ask yourself, like, don't push that feeling away and say, oh, it's going to be fine, I believe in myself. Like, yeah, you need to believe in yourself, but you also need to have it come from a place where you're not just but not out of denial, right? So use that feeling to your advantage. Use it to figure out what still needs work, and then work on it until it's done. This worry, concern, anxiety, imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call these things, it can actually be a great gift to you, because it will it will make sure that you're extra prepared. And so that is like a different meaning to give that feeling, other than, oh, well, if I feel this way, that probably means that I shouldn't do it. And then the last shift of focus, or I guess the last shift in behavior that I want to ask you to consider, is to, instead of immediately believing, like, once you're trying to do something hard, challenging, meaningful, that has a high reward and high payoff at the end, your inner critic, your inner saboteur is gonna like have a field day with it. They're gonna do everything to try to protect you, basically, from that feeling of failure. And so they're gonna tell you all kinds of things. You're gonna tell yourself all kinds of things that that you're gonna be inclined to believe, but they're not so good. They're not so productive for you to believe, and they don't serve you well. So when you hear yourself, that internal soundtrack in your head going, oh, I never know how to, deal with XYZ, or, I'm just not the kind of person who wins, or, why would anyone pay me that much? Or why would they ever take me to this job? Like, okay, that's going to run in your head almost definitely, right? If you're not hearing those voices, you're probably playing too small. So when you hear those voices, just write it down on a piece of paper, like that sentence of whatever you're feeling, and procrastinate on believing it until later, or whatever it's telling you to do. If it's telling you, like, oh, you should just go back to whatever you had before, you should just we should have never ventured so far. It's dangerous out here. So write it down on a piece of paper and procrastinate it. Why not? Like, we procrastinate so much already in our lives. So what's another list of, a to-do list to procrastinate on? And then, once you're in that high-tech job, once you're making the kind of salary that you want to and having the kind of impact that you want in that title, and, once you're working at a company with an amazing culture that, that you're really appreciated and you're fulfilled and your skills are being utilized and you feel like you're making a difference, then you can go back to that list and reconsider, should we still do this? And probably, you probably won't want to do that at that point. But my point is that those beliefs don't really serve you on this journey. So it's like everything that crosses your mind, just consider, does this make my journey easier, faster? Does this make me stronger? Does this make me, more likely to get the job or to accomplish what I'm out to accomplish? And if the answer is no, then that means that belief doesn't really serve you and you should set it aside for now. And I like to make a procrastination journal, because then it's like you're not just being dismissive of it. You're saying, okay, I hear you. I'll consider it. But later I have a full stack of things on my to-do list, so I'll do that last. And those are my strategies for dealing with imposter syndrome. So this is what I want to invite you to do next, in this next month, or whenever that you're hearing this. Next time that you have, so first of all, be sure to write down, reflect on where you have been stuck by imposter syndrome recently or in the past. Write it down, and that way you can know like what your like risk areas are, and you'll become more aware of them when they hit you next. Then the next time, also write down what are you going to do, right? So make a commitment to what is the action that you're going to take to interrupt that pattern. Like, you're going to stand up, you're going to twirl around, you're going to put a giant smile on your face, whatever it is. And then which one of the strategies are you going to use? What have you been focusing on now or until now? And what are you going to, the next time this happens to you, what are you going to replace those thoughts with? And I'd love to hear, which one of these you are committing to using. And again, the participation not required, but you'll get better results if you do write down what you're committing to do, because it, like I said, it makes you subconsciously aware of the commitment that you just made. So it's not like, cool information. All right, what's next? What's for dinner? It will actually make you more likely to stop and remember to do this the next time it happens, and it won't just kind of sneak up on you. So that is it for today's broadcast. And let me know if there's any other topics that you're struggling with that you want me to cover. You can write in the group. You can write in a comment over here in this broadcast, or you can just shoot me a private message, whatever, everything's cool. But yeah, let me know, and have a wonderful September.